Good evening, everyone. How you doing? This is Sam Tolley with Trust in the Truth, where we trust the truth of the Bible, we trust the truth of Jesus, we trust the truth of God, and we trust tr- truth, not lies, not falsehoods. I want to talk about something very dear to my heart: destroying childhood innocence. We're living in a time unlike any time I can recall in my lifetime, a time where children are no longer allowed to just be children. I mean, when I was a little kid, we were allowed to play, and most of us, we played in the streets. We were not afraid to do that. And the neighborhoods that we lived in, most of the kids did the same thing. And of course, the parents or whoever was driving down the streets were cognizant of us. And we got to stay out until the street lights came on. Once the street lights came on, we had to be in the house quick. And that was the rule. And in those days, we used to go to the park or to the playground at school. And we had steel apparatus. We had steel swings, steel slides. We had a merry-go-round. We had rings. And we didn't jump in plastic or rubberized pads. We had sand. We all got to jump in sand. And, those were the days when actually um, jumping in sand was fine. And then I think what happened was down the line, some of our indecent people would put razor blades in the sand and other things like that. And the next thing you know, kids had to have rubber mats. And then they got rid of the steel slides and the steel swings and had plastic. I'll never forget a time when I was a young boy. I wasn't too young, but this was in the time before we had skateboards, before, mass industrialized skateboards, big, wide, flat ones that look like little surfer boards with rubber wheels that seemed like they almost had shocks. Well, we didn't have these things. And my sister, she had skates. They were steel skates, little round steel skates. And it wasn't the type of skates that were built onto a shoe. It was the type of skates that you clipped onto your shoe. So what I did was I took a 2x4 and I cut me a nice section of it. I took her skates and I think I took them apart. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. And I took a hammer and I flattened out the end and I nailed them on the bottom of the 2x4. La la, I had a skateboard. And with that skateboard, I would ride up and down the street. And we had a hill in Pasadena. I think it was on the back side of Washington Elementary School. I think it was on Summit. And it was a very steep hill. And so we're always looking for like an adventure hills that we can circumnavigate. And I had a friend named Melvin. Melvin was bigger and taller than me. And I thought Melvin was a little bit more gullible than me, even at a young age. Well, 10, 12, 9, 10, I don't know, whatever it was. So I said, Melvin, why don't you ride your skateboard? He had one that he made like I did. You ride yours down the sidewalk, down this big old hill, and I'll ride mine. See, I wanted Melvin to try it out first. Well, Melvin did it, and he succeeded. So then it was my turn, and I got on that thing, and I'm going. And the next thing I know, I hit a rock, a little bitty rock. See, the little steel skates, they didn't have shocks, and they didn't have any kind of give. And with a 2x4, I didn't have that much room to maneuver. The only thing I can remember after that was some old white lady was picking me up out of the street. Now, I was on the sidewalk when it started, But I just remember some old white lady helping me in the middle of the street, putting band-aids on me. Well, that was the end of trying to go down the hills with my skateboard. But we used to do all kinds of stuff. We'd ride around on our bikes. We would just we were kids. We were adventurous. I remember one time as a little kid, I lived in a house that was in front of another house. And behind that other house was a large tree, a real big tree. Well, it must have been a big windstorm, and it knocked the tree down. But from a little kid's perspective, when I walked back there, it looked like a jungle. So I'm going all through these limbs like Tarzan or somebody, just acting like I'm in a jungle. I'm just fantasizing the whole thing. I'm just having a great time because I'm a kid, and that was a time when a kid could be a kid. I just do some other stupid things as a kid. I remember, of course, my parents didn't know. We lived in the same house. We had a carport that was detached from the house, but the roofs were about the same level. I would climb on the house and I'd run across the roof of the house and jump over into the carport. And I'd run from the carport and jump back over to the roof of the house. Never thinking for one second that if I missed the house or the carport, I was going to be in bad shape because when you're 10 years old or so, you think you're invincible. And I think God just gives us extra grace. He just looks after us when we are too mischievous or when the parents don't have the eye on us at that time. But nevertheless, for the most part, being a kid was being a kid. And whether you're rich or whether you're poor, we found ways to have fun. And we had fun. And we never considered adult things for the most part. I think my first exposure to any sexual information was in the sixth grade. And I remember distinctly my teacher, Mrs. Cottrell, had to show us this little short animated video. Now, the video wasn't, this must have been what, about 1963 or so. Well, the video talked about how the sperm met the egg, but it didn't get into any specifics. It didn't get into any detail, and it didn't get graphic at all. But it gave us just enough information, well, to pique our interest and to warn us the consequences of our actions. But today things are different. Today we live in a society that does not want to allow children to be children. And I'm not just talking about people in the sixth grade. I'm talking about all the way down to kindergarten and younger. We have people that seem hell bent on sexualizing our kids, destroying their innocence. It was just a few years ago that the Boy Scouts were in a big debate on whether they would allow homosexual scout members or homosexual scout leaders. And now you can have a homosexual scout leader and homosexual boys in the Boy Scouts. Now, think about this. If you have some kids that are same sex oriented young boys and a man that is same sex oriented who may have pedophilic tendencies and they're going out camping and in the woods or whatever, everybody's in sleeping bags or whatever. It doesn't take a lot of thinking to understand the temptations and the possibilities of that situation. But that's accepted these days. And parents, you don't have to put your kids in the Boy Scouts. You don't have to deal with that. Many parents and churches have separated themselves from that. But many people cannot separate themselves from the public school system, or many people have not found the way or the courage to separate themselves from it. And right now, there are things going on in the public school system that would blow your mind if you're paying attention to it. And unfortunately, far too many parents are not paying attention to it. So I want to share some articles. I'm going to read through them and talk about some of the things that I see in the article. And I hope you take the time to look them up. There's an article in the Epoch Times dated October 26, 2022. It says Georgia elementary teacher fired for opposing book depicting same-sex couples. And now this teacher is suing the school. It says a Byron County substitute teacher says she was terminated from her job at McAllister Elementary School after she reported a children's book containing illustrations that goes against her religious values. You know, we have this very tolerant society right now that seems to be tolerant of just about everything except for a Christian worldview. Part of the school new library read aloud program, children's book, All Are Welcome, contains illustrations of non-traditional forms of marriage, including depictions of same-sex male couple. Since being fired, Leslie Barr lawyered up and began a lawsuit against Byron County Schools and McAllister Elementary in Georgia for violating her constitutional rights and her rights as a parent. As a mom of 3 sons, all currently attending Byron County schools, Barr said she learned about the book on August 15 through the school librarian, who made it public on Facebook ahead of the Read Aloud program, adding that she was already on high alert after previous interactions. I guess that means previous interactions with the school and things she must have noticed. I believe in traditional marriage as outlined by the Bible. That marriage is held between a man and a woman, deeply held religious beliefs. She told Epoch Times, this book depicts images that were contrary to that. Barr reported her findings. And by the way, let me say something. I went online and I got to look at this book. And actually, you can go on YouTube, and there is an online read aloud of the whole book. It'll take you through the whole book of what is it called? All Are Welcome. There's a nice lady reading it, and she she sounds like she's more than glad for you to experience it. Excuse me. Yeah, left one of my notes down there, and I wanted to get it. Okay. And when I looked at the book, some of the pictures, there's a picture of, there's one set of pictures where they show 4 um, couples, all male and female, going across the front. There seems to be a white couple on the right, a black couple after that. And then there's a decidedly Muslim couple with a little kid, and another white or possibly Hispanic or mixed couple. And all 4 of these couples have children with them. And it shows that in the background, all are welcome. But when you look at the rear, there's also couples in the rear. And on the left, it's hard to make out. It looks like a mixed couple with a handicapped child. Then there's 2 women. One of them is pregnant. The other one has her arms around her, holding what appears to be a tray of some kind of food or something. And the pregnant one is holding the hand of a young child. Then there's another one of a lady and a little boy. And then to the far right are two men, which is apparently is a male same-sex couple. This couple, one man is holding a dish, I guess. And you know what? When I'm looking at the front, two of the couples seem to have dishes there as well. So I guess there's some kind of eating thing going on, as well as the child that's in a wheelchair in the rear. But what's interesting about the two male characters, they're not just arm in arm. Their arms are across each other, but they're low, meaning that they're not situated across each other's waist, but it appears that they're situated across each other's behind. There was another picture of the two same sex ladies, and they had a tray. They were walking away, I guess, from a house, or they were on a sidewalk. And, like I said, two same sex ladies, and one of them is pregnant. How is that possible? And then they have a little child with them. Well, it's only possible as if somebody inseminated one of those women, which had to be a man, or it was some kind of artificial insemination, because two women cannot produce a child. No more than two men can produce a child. But the attitude, or it seems that they're trying to project, is the attitude of normalcy. One thing that I know is not acceptable, I know the Muslim couple and their child, their religion will not be as welcome into the same sex environment that these people are trying to portray, no more than the Christian would. But let me go on with the report. Barr reported her findings to a fellow teacher forthwith, and shortly thereafter, McAllister Elementary Principal Heather Tucker voicing her concerns and requesting that her own children be excused from the reading. Now, this is Barr requesting that her children be excused from the reading. Principal Tucker ended up calling me the next day, and I was not at school, Barr said. She said that my kids would be excused from the reading program. But the debacle didn't end there. Barr asked for an opportunity to meet the principal in private to discuss the matter. But with that came consequences. I basically told her we have deeply held religious values that we're teaching our children about marriage, and that I felt like the book is outside of that, Barr said. And that is not being bigoted. That is not being contrary to anybody else's position in life. That is foundational Christian principles, that God created man, he created woman, and he created them as a unit and no other. Okay, where were we? As a substitute teacher, Barb used a platform to pick up classroom work. She can choose her own schedule and is fairly flexible, she said. Usually, she's awash with jobs, then something changed. When you log into the platform, you can go in and say, I want to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, she said. When I logged into that platform, I had no offers of work. The day before I had logged in, I had 57 job offers. And then that day that I logged in, the next day after making the complaint, I had zero. I had a friend that was a substitute teacher. And before I retired, I was thinking about the possibility of, getting extra money, doing extra things. And she said, being a substitute teacher is great. You don't have to get your credentials to be a substitute, and you can pick your own hours. And that was in California where that discussion was. And this is in Georgia. So I guess that principle applies nationwide. But to have 57 offers one day and zero the next is something to think about. Prior to becoming a substitute teacher, Barr had taught full time in Bryan County for 10 years until taking a break in 2018 when her youngest son entered kindergarten this year. She returned to work, when her youngest son entered kindergarten this year, she returned to work as a substitute at McAllister Elementary before stumbling on said children's book. A few days after her termination, Barr contacted Alliance Defending Freedom Legal and began building a case accusing the school of violating her constitutional rights, which guarantees religious freedom and free speech. There is a big assault against religious freedom when it comes down to a Bible worldview or a biblical worldview. And freedom of speech no longer is it acceptable. I tell people all the time that we're no longer a Christian nation. We're a nation that is non-Christian with Christians living in it. And it's time for the church to wake up and understand that reality. Goes on, parents have the right to express their opinion on matters of public concern, and even teachers are entitled to express concerns about what's being taught to their own children. Barr's attorney, Phil Scheidler, told Epoch Times, a government cannot punish someone for speaking out on a matter of public concern, as Lindsley did. And that's essentially what happened, and she was punished for stating her views. The alleged punitive firing might also contravene Georgia's new Parents' Bill of Rights, which protects the fundamental rights of parents to direct the upbringing and education of their minor children, and affords them the right to review all instructional material intended for use in the classroom of his or her minor child. Seems like this is what was going on in Virginia when the parents were going to school board meetings and protesting, and they started becoming subject to FBI scrutiny. Are we enemies of the state? The Parents' Bill of Rights basically has, first, the right of parents to understand what is being used with their children in schools. Their minor children, said Schessler, and second, the right to object to things that they don't want used with their children. I'm telling you. Let's finish this up. The Epoch Times reached out to McAllister Elementary School Principal Tucker for comment. Barr said the book, All Are Welcome, is already being read to students at the elementary school, which instructs children from grades K through 5. In a similar lawsuit severed in July in Loudoun County, Virginia, 11 parents, in conjunction with America First Legal, took action against Loudoun County Public Schools for exposing students to inappropriate sexualized material in the classroom and implementing policies that would keep parents from knowing if their kids are expressing different genders at school. Can you imagine that? You're a parent and you take your kid or you trust your kid with public schools, and now they want to circumvent your ability to parent your own children and keep you from knowing what they're doing. The whole idea about schools was to prepare your child to function in society from an economic and sociological point of view as far as their education is concerned. It is not their job to restructure the moral foundation that you as a parent has placed on your child. This is dangerous ground, very dangerous ground. You know, in the book of Proverbs, verse 22, verse 6, it says, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, the parent's job is to train up a child in the way he should go, but it seems like the schools want to retrain a child in the way they want the child to go. And if that's the case, and it's contrary to what the parents want, it seems like the school is working for the enemy of God. And we as parents need to get control of that situation, because it's not the school's job to raise our children. And the school is not going to look after them if all hell breaks loose, if they fall apart as an adult. The parent is the one that's going to always be the fallback person, not the school. Like I said, they're destroying childhood innocence. And we as parents are supposed to protect childhood innocence. I got another story. And this is a story that's even worse than the last one. California early childhood teacher admits using gender unicorn to instruct kids on sexual attraction. Why are so-called educators instructing our children on sexual attraction? And then they claim that they're not being groomers. Where is it? Where is that in their job profile? Where did that come from? Why is that so important to them? You know, it all harkens back in my mind to when these people wanted to be let out the closet. And I'm not saying all these folks want to do this stuff with kids. I'm talking about the enemy. The enemy wants to open up doors, and he's going to continue to go through them. And where God told us, like I said previously, to train up a child, we're supposed to control what's going in their minds and keep certain stuff out of it. Well, the enemy wants to control what goes in their mind and put all the filth and degradation in it. But it's our job to take care of the kid and to protect the kid, even against the schools, against politicians, even against a pastor, if this joker is not lining up with the things of God. We, the parent, are the first line of defense. This article by Hannah Grossman, the California teacher, said if parents don't like how she conducts herself, they can go to another classroom. Exclusive. A California early childhood teacher admitted during a presentation that she uses an age appropriate gender unicorn, whatever that is, in her classroom, which includes content on sexuality and gender, according to a video obtained by Fox News Digital. Danita McCrae currently works as a child development teacher at an elementary school in Sacramento City Unified District. At a 2021 California Teachers Association conference, McCrae gave a presentation on how to incorporate gender ideology into early childhood. How about teaching the kid how to do math, how to do cursive writing? How about teaching the kid about the fundamentals of basic English? The CTA, that's California Teachers Association, is the most powerful affiliate of the nation's largest labor union, the National Teachers Association. So this National Teachers Association is corrupting our children instead of educating them. Now, early childhood is 0 to 8-year-olds. So that's kind of like from preschool to third grade. And the focus of this workshop is to provide you with positive strategies to support transgender and gender nonconforming children, McCrae said. You hear that? During the professional development session, McCrae recommended early childhood teachers introduce transgenderism to toddlers. Let me repeat that. During the professional development session, McCrae recommended early childhood teachers introduce transgenderism to toddlers. For example, she said, they should incorporate a gender uniform worksheet in their classrooms. In Ephesians chapter 6, starting at verse 4, it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother. This is the first command with promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. When you send your child to a godless school like this, that child is subjecting themselves to what they're being taught based on the premise that they're obeying you. Think about it. If your child honors you and your child respects you and your child loves you, and most children do, and most children want their parents to be pleased with them and and to appreciate their efforts. And most children trust their parents to do what's best for them. So if the parents are sending a child to any school, the child's inhibitions are off. The child's protective mindset is off for the most part because they trust mommy and daddy. And mommy and daddy ain't going to send them someplace where they're in danger, where they're being indoctrinated with filth, where their mind is being corrupted. Children don't think like that. And we tell our children all the time, don't talk to strangers. If you're walking home and some stranger offers you candy or a puppy or anything, or say we sick, ignore that person, run away. That registers in their mind because mommy and daddy told them that. But at the same time, now, Johnny, you go to school and you be a good boy. I want to get a good report card. I want to hear that you've been doing your lessons well. And I'll reward you. Your report card is your paycheck. I go to work and I get a paycheck for doing my job. You go to school and your paycheck is your report card that you've done well. We've set them up. What is the child to do? Are they supposed to have the mental capacity of an adult? Are they supposed to be able to reason and understand manipulation? No. They depend on you. And that is your job, to make sure that you put them in a good environment. And if you can't put them in a good environment, then get them out of there. Homeschool. Get them in a private school. Or, you know what? It's time for the church to listen to Jesus and to be wise as serpents, but gentle as doves. If we're going to trust the Lord with our lives, then we got to trust the Lord with our kids. One of us might have to not work. One parent, we may have to figure out how to live on one salary. Or we may have to get together with a bunch of churches, a bunch of schools, a bunch of mothers and stuff, and we figure out a way to homeschool together. But we cannot allow these people to destroy our kids. Look, you cannot send your kid 5 days a week, 4 to 6 hours a day of indoctrination, and then expect them to be able to maintain a biblical worldview at the age appropriation that they are, just going to church on Sunday and listen to what you say for a little while at night. While you say, "How's your homework?" And, "Oh, okay, fine, great. I'm tired. I'm watching a little TV. Eat your home, do your homework, eat your food, play around, and go to bed." And send them right back out there in the devil's domain. It's no good. One of the big problems the church is facing right now is that we're trying to fight a 21st century war with 20th century tactics. It's no good. When we had a country that had a Christian worldview, you could put your kid in school and don't worry about that crap. I, as a child, didn't experience that. But these kids now, it's coming hard and heavy. So we have to change. We have to change. Since your child trusts you, then you got to give your child something worth trusting. That means if your child is in the wrong environment, you got to get them out of there. Or at the very least, you got to know what the enemy's doing if you're going to counteract it. You can't counteract what you don't know. And don't tell me you're too busy, because you're telling me that you're sacrifice your kid to the enemy. Is your kid worth it to you? Think about it. Where was it with this nonsense? The gender unicorn discusses sexuality, gender identity, gender expression, and romantic attraction. Oh, this. I mean, come on, people. What does this have to do with education? What does this have to do with education? This is sexual grooming and sexual indoctrination. Okay, let me calm down. Other terms the educator claimed were pertinent to the age group include sexual orientation and agender. I don't know what that means. Lord knows, I'll figure it out later. McCrae was asked by one of the teachers whether toddlers were too young for these conversations. I've done research. I have got my doctorate degree. Children are not too young at 5 years old. Children understand gender as early as 3 years old. A 3-year-old is barely understanding how to use the bathroom. A 5-year-old know a thing about sexuality and has no business knowing. 20 years ago, somebody would have talked about a 5-year-old teaching them about sexuality. The police would have locked that person up and put a tag on them as a child molester. But here we are. Here we are. The gender unicorn. Now they show this unicorn and they show these different things: gender identity, and then they give a list: female, woman, girl, male, man, boy, or other genders. I don't know what other genders there are. Gender expression: female, feminine, masculine, other. Sex assigned at birth. This is one of these new weird things. Oh, you're assigned this at birth. Are you going to stay that way or change? Then it gives you 3 categories: female, male, other / intersex. Then the next column is physically attracted to: women, men, other genders. Why would you even put this down? How come, if they're going to be consistent, why wouldn't they say physically attracted to boys or girls? Why women or men? Sound like a pedophilia thing to me. Emotionally attracted to: women, men, other genders. Some of us that have a Christian worldview, we really never figured out what other genders are. We've heard all these terms, but we've never seen another gender. Fox News Digital reached out to the district and they said they will look into her comments to determine whether she violated policy. The district will look into the comments made at a conference and whether they align with district policies or were made outside the scope of the employee's duties, the spokesperson said. The policy strongly supports the right of transgender and gender nonconforming students in order to ensure the safe and civil environment, the district said. I thought this would be a great tool that you could use with your students, McCrae said about the gender unicorn. You can download them and you can talk to them about it. And of course, it's age appropriate, she said. And even at 5 years old, you can ask them, are you a girl or boy? And you can explain that to them. Yes, you were born a girl or boy, but you may not feel that way. What does feeling have to do with reality? I mean, reality needs to line up with feelings. Or excuse me, feelings need to line up with reality. Whether you feel as though you're a boy or girl, your chromosomes when you're born do not change from XX to XY or from XY to XX. They are what they are. Wen Yu Wu of the California Equal Rights Foundation told Fox News Digital that there was a general issue in the U.S. of radical teacher activists promoting adult concepts at early ages. There is a fine line between promoting understanding of transgenderism in older kids and adults in, and inculcating the cult among young children. The line is between free expression and grooming, she said. Instead of being the gatekeeper against toxic fads in education, radical teacher activists are actively robbing young Americans, youth, and vulnerable their childhood innocence by obsessing over the dangerous gender ideology. What is worse is that such activism is encouraged, endorsed, and sponsored by teachers' unions, she said. Oh, man, it goes on. McRae said she includes children's books discussing transgenderism in her classroom, such as I Am Jazz, to help kids understand the concept. And another book about gender nonconformity she uses is Sparkle Boy. And then she described giving the class a project with glitter to make the book tangible. At one point, McCrae was asked whether she was pushing toddlers into identifying with a sexuality or gender identity. The attitude that you set the tone in your classroom depicts the classroom. So in my classroom, there's no boys' bathroom, no girls' bathroom. So I already set the tone and I don't ask them, do you want to play with this doll? Everything is open to everyone and by everyone to be yourself. However, if children in the classroom say that certain toys are for a specific gender, McCrae said she would shut it down. Eyes, amazing how children do that. And they put each other in check about that. If they say something that you learn at home, boys do that, girls do that, but I shut that down in my classroom. I don't allow the children to do that. This is why we have to protect our children. This is why we have to get them out of potentially toxic environments. We can't trust these people to incorporate what we're teaching them. We have to protect our children if we want them to stay within a biblical worldview. She added that if the parents do not like how she conducts her classroom, they have the option to go to another classroom. The district told Fox Digital that San Diego Unified School District believes parents and families are equal partners in education. We value their contributions and will always work with them to address any issues or concerns they may have with a teacher or other staff member. Folks, we need to be careful about our children. We're not only destroying their innocence, but we're scaring the hell out of them too. My last article I'm going to try to squeeze in here was written November 25, 2022 by Pete Cadell. It's entitled, Over 70% of children aged 7 to 12 now afraid of climate change survey. More than 70% of children aged 7 to 12 are now afraid of climate change. Whoops. Let's see if I lost my, no, I got it, excuse me. According to the results of a survey, more than 7 in 10 children aged 7 to 12 are now worried about climate change, research conducted by a UK-based startup has reportedly found. It comes amid reports from various experts that children and teenagers of various demographics are experiencing high rates of mental health difficulties, with one school counselor earlier this year saying that anxiety rates have hit an all-time high post-lockdown. According to the report by Euronews, the survey, which polled 1,000 children born between 2000 and 2015 on their views regarding the environment, found that a total of 71% of respondents were now worried about environmental changes, including the climate change or changing climate. 27% of respondents in particular said that the impact changing global temperatures were having on animals is their greatest concern, while just under 1 in 5 were most concerned about plastic pollution. Remember years ago, who was that? Al Gore was talking about the ice caps were going to melt and we were going to lose polar bears. Well, we got plenty of polar bears, and the ice caps are still there. This climate change is a bunch of crap, but let me move on. The survey is one of the latest examples of so-called eco-anxiety, extreme worry in the relation to the changing climate or dangers to the environment, affecting children at a time when educational systems are focusing more and more on ongoing issues to do with emissions and potential catastrophic rise in sea levels. For those on the political left in particular, eco-anxiety appears to be a growing variable, with the European Union even running courses for its workers in the hopes of helping them to deal with the stress brought about by their climate beliefs. A study published earlier this year found that a significant number of children now also appear to be experiencing a variety of emotions such as anger, sadness, guilt, and hopelessness that characterize eco anxiety, though noted that more research into the phenomenon's impact on children in particular needs to be done. Look, people, let me say this real quick. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 28, and God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. God gave us the earth to use it, including the gas, the coal, the oil, all that stuff. Everything within the environment He gave us. Yes, we're supposed to take care of it, but He gave it to us. Man can't destroy the earth. The earth will never be destroyed as long as man is here, unless God decides to destroy it. And He told us to fill it. So we don't have to worry about overpopulation. We don't have to worry about there not being enough of anything to last as far as what God provided for us. If God is God and He gave us this stuff, why should we be fearful? It's the enemy that comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And they want to destroy our children's innocence, and they want to instill fear in them and destroy their lives. And these climate activists and all these secular people who can't control anything are producing this anxiety in our children. And we need to reinstill a biblical worldview and let them know that God is in control, not man. Okay. For those on the political left in particular, eco anxiety appears to be a growing variable, really, with the European Union even running courses for its workers in the hopes of helping them to deal with the stress brought on about their climate beliefs. A study published earlier this year found that a significant number of children now also appear to be experiencing a variety of emotions such as anger. Oh, I already read that. Okay. Sorry about that. Trying to keep up. Let's move on down. Uh, Such anxiety comes at a time when many young people are already experiencing major mental health difficulties for a wide variety of reasons, with some experts even suspecting that the on and off worldwide COVID lockdowns have had a serious detrimental effect on the well-being of children. Really, you lock kids up, you keep them out of school, uh, you make them wear a mask all day in school, you scare them half to death, telling them they're going to die. What do you expect? Kids have the highest level of anxiety I've ever seen. Anxiety about basic safety and fear of what could happen, one Colorado school counselor told a New York Times investigation earlier this year. Yeah, because they trust us. Others remarked that their children had ended up frozen socially and emotionally at the age that they were when the pandemic started, seemingly as a result of lockdown related isolation. Meanwhile, the CDC has reported that 44% of American teenagers reported themselves as experiencing persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. That means these folks, what do they have to look forward to? They're being taught that they're nothing, that they're just a biological accident, and that there's nothing going to happen after they die except for they're dead. The world was ending all around them because we're destroying it. Man can't solve nothing. They have no hope in God because they got a secular worldview. Those of us who believe in God, we know that even when we die, we live, and we live forever with Him. 20% said that they had contemplated suicide, with 9% saying that they had attempted suicide at least once during 2020. 9% of kids. We got to do better. More recent data has shown that teenage girls in the UK are also in the midst of a mental health epidemic, with 54% of 16 and 17-year-olds being reported as experiencing elevated psychological stress over the last 12 months. Nearly one quarter, meanwhile, said that they had self harm within the past year, while 11% reported having attempted suicide. Well, here we are, we're telling boys that they can identify as girls, and then they can compete against girls in sports where girls are physically unable to compete against boys. So we tone down the girls there, and we're telling them that there is no future because after you're dead, you're gone because you don't talk about God. You talk about evolution. And now you're telling them that, well, maybe you're a boy, maybe you're really not a girl. And so instead of us really evolving biologically, we're convincing people to take puberty blockers and cut their um, breasts off and all kinds of other weird stuff because of you feel wrong, instead of giving them a foundation that doesn't change. Parents, we have to grab a hold of this situation. The enemy is running rampant with our children. We have to remember, like I said, Proverbs 22, verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he's old, he will not depart from it. That doesn't mean that they won't step aside and do something silly. But that knowledge, that teaching, it will be incorporated in them instead of this worldview that is destructive and deadly and godless. We need to protect the innocence of our children and our young children, our little kids, our little toddlers, our little 5-year-olds, 6, 7. We need to let them be children. We need to let them we don't need to incorporate a bunch of goofy stuff in their lives. I used to, 5-year-olds, I'm watching Romper Room. The cartoons were innocent. They didn't give me gender conforming things when I was watching cartoons, just little stuff that have fun. Now our kids are being indoctrinated, being all kinds of mess is being thrown at them. And they're accepting that mess because they trust us. So we need to do our job and protect our children. Quit trusting anybody. Make sure you know. Be wise as serpents, because those snakes out there, they know, and they're fighting hard like that McCrae woman to do what they want to do. Yeah, we can be gentle as doves, but we don't have to be stupid. We need to take care of our children because God is going to hold us accountable for it. And by the way, from the family structure, yes, mothers, God is going to hold you accountable for those children. But Father, God is going to hold you accountable for that mother and those children. So do your job. Line up with the Bible. If you're a Christian, and quit just handing them kids off to people and hoping for the best, because you're responsible. This is Sam Tolley. I'm out.